Okay, John, we're streaming live.
Good evening, everyone. The meeting of the board is now called to order at 7:10 p.m. Before I begin tonight's meeting, I'm required to make the following announcement. In the unlikely event the fire alarms go off, please exit the building quickly and quietly. Evacuate the building using the following exit. Will anyone need assistance in case of such an event? Once outside, please move away from the building and keep fire lanes and entrances clear. Do not enter the building until you are told to do so. Please turn off all electronic devices during the meeting and please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May I have a motion to approve the agenda? Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Right into our discussion, and I will turn it over to our principal discussion.
Thank you for coming, everybody. We're always excited when you come. We dress the place up, we step it up, and we're excited when you're here. And you have a shamrock plant to take home because in honor of St. Patrick's Day. So what we wanted to present to you today is a little glimpse into our hybrid and our remote work that we do and what our teachers have shared with us, what a regular education teacher has shared with me, some special education teachers, and what some specialists have shared. This morning, one of our speech pathologists shared this little glimpse, and she said, thinking back since the beginning of the year, when I asked her what resonates with you, and she said, our students are so resilient, the little ones right to 5th grade, that she wants you to know that she appreciates our parents so much. She wants you to know that her, the faculty and the staff are pretty awesome, and I agree with that. And as a whole, everybody that I've talked to over the last month preparing this, that the communication with our families since the year has been with our COVID has increased 100-fold. We have been in parents' homes since last March. I shared this on my Facebook page. We know grandmas and grandpas. We know goldfish names. We know we have celebrated birthdays with our children. When we are full remote last year in the 2 weeks between Thanksgiving and then coming right back in December, I would pop into Google Meets and I would see, little babies being born, being brought home from the hospital, those celebrations, sometimes sadness, telephone calls to parents celebrating anything, We have made those bonds even stronger, and it's been a whirlwind, but in all of this craziness, there have been celebrations. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that, and our faculty, our staff members want me to share that we're proud. We're very proud. We're proud of the work we do. We're very proud of our students. They are resilient. They come in every day and they say, we're super happy to be here. And when they leave, they say, we'll see you tomorrow. When they leave on Thursday, they say, we'll see you on Friday. They're super happy to be here. And then they don't skip a beat. Those are our kids. We also want you to know that small group instruction, they might just be here for 2 days, but those 2 days are worth it. Sometimes they get one-on-one instruction. Sometimes they get two-on-one instruction, because at AJ Schmidt, we have, and in all of our buildings, especially with the K1 initiative, we push in our specialists, we push in our special ed providers at AJ Schmidt. So sometimes there's 3 adults in the room. So we have small group instruction. So just think about that. If there are 7 kids in a classroom, think about the extra support that the children are getting. And those children aren't just stagnant in that group. If those children in that group have mastered that skill that they're working on, they go to the next group. So those are really key components for those little ones. So really, they might be here for 2 days, but they're really getting solid instruction. And then on Mondays, our teachers are working, we call it I call it googly. They're working googly with our students, and then they go home with packets. Packets might seem a little strange to people, but it makes that equity across all borders, and it's working for us. The first few weeks, some of our teachers, I never saw this movie, but they say it was like Groundhog's Day, the same thing, the next 2 days, the same thing, the next 2 days. I know that Mrs. Donovan said that to me, and I said, I gotta watch this movie. But now it's kind of old hat. We're at it, and we love it, and we're working at it. That's what we're doing. Our kids are adaptable, and our students are excited to be back. So I want to show you on page 2 at AJ Schmidt, the first trimester, we had 37 children on full remote. The second trimester, we had 33, and look at that, 15. We have 15 kids on full remote. So on Mondays, we have touch points with our full remote students. And during the week, we'll talk about that in a moment. We also have touch points with our students that are hybrid and full remote as well. We'll talk about that in a moment. And I scattered little pictures of our students through the PowerPoint. But let's talk about Jessica Dimmer. Coolness factor times 10. There she is. I call her a unicorn because there's nobody like her. So last year, Jessica Dimmer, Mrs. Dimmer, was one of our kindergarten teachers. And now she's an AIS and a Googly. She is a unique asset for sure. She's morphed since the beginning of the year. And she is I call her our touch point. She's working throughout the district, but out of this building. So she's open to all students across the district. And it started, what she did was she sent out in October, well, before that as well. So it's the purple document on your table. And that explains, she updated it every couple weeks. And that's what she sent out to families throughout the district. And she did it through the teachers. So every teacher in the district would get that through their Google Gmail, their Gmail. That went out to children and backpack mail. And parents across the district would see that was her help desk for them. Started off maybe a little slow at the beginning, and they would meet her via Google Meet or phone in case they didn't have internet, or they could dial her up, or they could call her. So since then, look on the blue sheet. The blue sheet is her calendar. So she sends that out now instead of the letter, because this is just a super great visual. she sends that out the same way. So when I spoke with her, she sent that out to all the principals as well. It's open to all of the students in the district, as I shared. She's there for support, she's there for guidance, for extra assistance for work. And she also said she's there for emotional support. She's there for emotional support for parents as well. She said parents sometimes just call for touch points too. She said a lot of times parents need technical support. She said sometimes if it's a full remote student, that the parent or the child will call just because they need another person just to talk to. And I get it. Just think when we were on, I mean, we're all working, but just think when we were all in the, my goodness, the March, the shutdown. I mean, we were all wondering, you know, we all needed that support. So when children are full remote, she said, I am that person. So she is that good person. She's a people person. And so she's that good person. She's in a great spot. She said she helps with organization, clarification, prioritizing with students' work. And she said sometimes that the parent and the child will come on together. She said that there's two little students at JTY that they would just call and say, can I just read to you? And she said, yeah. And she said, now that they came back to school, she said, I miss my buddies reading to me. So she's hoping that on their days that they're home and on their, she can't remember if they're green or they're white team, that they'll pick up that reading with her again because she misses that. So she is a true special unicorn in my book. When I met with AIS, OT, speech, PT, and Mrs. Miller, oh, wait till you hear about Mrs. Miller, talk about a unicorn. AIS, our AIS teachers, boy, they work it. They push into our, that's our academic interventions specialists, and they do reading and math intervention. And they work with students in person, and they push into our K through 5, and on the times that it's not Monday, because they meet with our students on Monday virtually, on the days that they can, that they're not in class, they meet virtually as well. So they are really busy. They said that they have lots of parent intervention, or sorry, communication, lots of emails. They've built stronger relationships during this whole year, meaning March to March, and the relationships are stronger than ever, which is wonderful. When we do our domain 4, so that's the 4th domain, which talks about professional communications and relationships with what we do with teachers and outside of school, things like that. And when we talk about one of the domains, sometimes when we would speak, that was kind of a hard one to talk about, was, you know, how do you reach out to parents? Sometimes it was, oh, newsletters, you know, this. Teachers have so much to talk about. How do you reach out to parents? They can't talk enough about that. I talk to them with Google, I talk to them with email, I talk to them on the phone, we text. I mean, that domain 4, that section of communication is loaded. It's really fabulous. Our OT, you saw our OT room. When I spoke with her, she said we're able to co-treat. Our students are eager. Our parents, our partners, if when we're scheduling our virtual meetings, our parents are willing to help if they can't come to a meeting to reschedule. So that's fabulous. Speech. Our speech teacher, she said that she's able to send reminders during with Remind. Communication is huge with families, just as everybody has mentioned, like no other year, she said. PT, Mrs. Cassidy said that families are becoming so familiar with their treatments. She said, and they're following through with interventions at home, which is huge. I know if one of my children did have PT, and if I was able to see the interventions being done right with me, I would know more how to carry through at home. So that was a big plus. And she also said that she's integrating more technology in school with children, and the children are loving it. And Mrs. Miller, she's doing so many Google Meets with our students to meet their minutes for their skills, and picking up students who might be struggling. And she does that on their days that they're not in school, and she's pushing into kindergarten as well, and our students are benefiting from it. So there's lots of work being done, and our kids are benefiting from it. So we have a lot of coolness going on. And one more thing that I wanted to mention, the Bengals Math Club. So Dr. Shively and Dr. Ormsby are here again from Buffalo State, and they have 11 pre-service math and special ed combined this semester. The difference this semester is that they're only working virtually out of 119. And they wanted to make it a little different this year, or I'm sorry, this semester. So what they did was they sent out a permission slip to parents saying, we want to target your children's, using your children's STAR scores, which is our global benchmark. We want to use that. We want to target what your children might need, what their challenges are, and we want to work virtually with your students when they're home. Over 55 parents signed up. So they'll work out of room 119. Parents have signed up. The children will work with a Buffalo State student under the direction of Dr. Shively and Dr. Ormsby to fine-tune their math and remediate them on their days for interventions in half-hour increments. So that's pretty cool. And good thing John Wilson's not here, because 2 chickens and 2 bunnies come along too. And they're in the gardens. John Wilson didn't care for that, but yeah, Dr. G got in trouble for that. So there's lots of intervention, there's lots of coolness, doing good things for kids. Special areas are back in their own classrooms. Kids are excited. The first day that they were back in library, general music, and music lessons, they were like, oh, we're back in the rooms. Because they were always back in art, of course, but when they were back in those rooms, they were like starstruck. So that was happy to see. So we're just happy you're here. And I talked a lot and quickly. I'm glad. Jim, the best present. And Mr. Rydell's lucky he has water.
That's the difference between middle school and elementary.
That's right. Does anybody have any questions? You're welcome.
So as to our budget discussions, we'll turn it over to Mr. Davis.
I've hit my shots. Just temporarily means all of it. So my outdoor voice. Okay, that better? So we're sort of in a holding pattern right now with the budget. We made some small tweaks as we've been going through. We're waiting to see what we get for state aid in the final state budget and whether or not we receive any federal aid under the federal stimulus package. But just a couple of small changes. Since the last time we presented the budget, we've got Our final workers' comp numbers for next year, and that came down by about $30,000, so I took that out. We did receive additional pilot revenues because there is a new pilot that's coming in for a warehouse in Derby. So I chased down the assessment figures on that so I could figure in the pilot. And there were some savings out of salaries and fringe benefits. So right now, the budget's sitting at just under 62 million, 61,973 and change. It's up about 1.9 million over last year, which is 3.19%. Our tax cap has been submitted to the state controller's website because of those changes, the pilot especially, and then some debt service that I'll talk about in a minute. Our tax cap came down a little bit to 4.08%. So it's still, our cap is still over 4%. My recommendation is that we try to go out a little under 2%. It's a tough financial time, and I don't think going out at the cap is just the way to go this year for us. So we're looking at a gap of about 1.8 million to get down to that 2% figure. So really, it's almost the total increase in the budget. So you can see, even though we're not funded that much with taxes, we're more state aid dependent. Almost the entire increase would have to come on in order to get the tax down to that level of the tax increase. So I wanted to just talk for a minute about debt service, because this is something I forgot to mention last time when I talked about our budget committee meeting. We have in our general fund a reserve for bonded debt, and that was a mandatory reserve that we had to create when we sold the Brand School building, because we had debt outstanding serial bonds on that building. So by law, when you sell a building, when a municipality sells a building and you have outstanding debt, you have to create a mandatory debt reserve, and any money from it has to go toward that debt. We're paying off the bonds this year, so you'll see an increase. You'll see a decrease on our budget for debt service for serial bonds, and you'll see an increase in debt service for bond anticipation notes. So what I did is I kind of kept the debt service overall as level as I could, because if I let the debt service drop down, we would have had a negative tax cap, and we would have had to cut the tax levy in order to do the budget. So I held it the same also in keeping with what we told the taxpayers. We try to front load as much of the debt before we go to serial bonds so that we ease up the debt service payments over 20 years on bonds once we go to bonds. But more importantly, because we're paying off that bond anticipation note, we're going to have to do something with the debt reserve. Now, I'm estimating we're going to have about $4.5 million in the debt reserve at the end of the year. We could do two things. We can move it to a debt service fund and use it for outstanding debt, or what I'd like you to consider, and we don't need to decide this tonight, but what might be a better idea is to put a proposition on our vote this year and ask the voters to approve a capital reserve and fund it with the unspent money in the debt service fund. And then use that for a future project. So rather than try to do dance with the debt service like I've been doing with the debt service reserve, we can just earmark $4.5 million to go against a future project and then use it up front and not get to do the dance every year. So worst case scenario, if the voters didn't approve it, we can move the money to the debt service fund and still use it for the outstanding debt. Or I think what would be better, and I did talk to our auditors about that, they felt that the capital reserve was more palatable, especially with the state auditors. But it does require voter approval.
So Dan, to clarify, the property putting out has nothing to do with money other than we're creating a fund to move money we already have into the account.
Yes.
So we're asking for approval just to create.
Correct. We did need voter approval when the reserve for bonded debt was set up because it was mandatory. We were required to do it. Now they were paying off that last bond this year. We really need to do something with it. So to move it to another reserve, to a capital reserve, it does require voter approval. But we could put in there that it's going to be funded with unspent proceeds from the debt reserve. And I spoke, like I said, I spoke with our auditors, and they thought that was the better of the two ideas. Just the thought. So we can talk again as we finalize the budget, but I'll keep yammering to you about that. And figure out what we want.
So on the finance committee, trickiness of it was worded the way they were. The public would understand it, that it's not additional. It's not coming in the middle of a construction project, as if to say we're doing it again, right? So we've got to word it in a way where we understand that, we don't know exactly how yet. So it doesn't look like it's an additional cost
Well, that's exactly why
coming
I
off.
asked the clarifying question.
Yeah.
That'll be up to us to make sure we're promoting an entity that just for the creation of the town is not possible.
Yeah, we'll ask Marnie or our financial advisors to help us with the language for that resolution if we decide to do it. And we'll make sure that we put in there that it'll have no effect on the tax law. Because I think you're right, that is key.
When would we have to make this decision by?
I'll ask our clerk. It's probably when we have to do the resolution for the bus purchase proposition and all of that at the same time. What? March 6th. Okay.
Because our first legal notice has to be state license. Unless we can do it.
We can bring it back for our next March meeting if you like. One of the things you have to, or two things that we do have to be specific about when we create a capital reserve, we have to specify the time period that it would be in existence and the maximum amount of funding put into it. So, I would go high on the funding, and because we're 4.5 million, maybe do 6 or 7, just to cover us, because any interest earned has to be credited to that fund every year, to that reserve fund, which we do right now. But so if we don't use it for a few years, it will grow. So we don't want to set it at the level that it's at right now. We want to give ourselves some breathing. We maybe say that it's good for 10 years or something to give us time to do another project. Right. Yeah.
And then if that fails, we go to another option.
Then we would, yeah, if it failed, we would have to record an interfund expense in the general fund and then a revenue in the debt service fund. The problem with that is if we don't, if the budget, if we don't have enough unspent appropriations in the budget to clear it all out, we might not be able to move the entire thing in 1 year. But at that point, we might just have to take the comment on the audit and move the rest of the following year. So the preferable way, because we wouldn't have to record expense in the general fund, is just really moving it from one reserve to another within the general fund. That would be the preferable.
Like you said, it's also a simple majority and,
Correct. And then I'll keep you posted on the budget as we go on.
Yeah, we're gonna need another.
I would say once we get a little closer and hopefully get a state budget or some sort of indication on the federal money. What we're afraid of with the federal stimulus money is that since it's going to flow through the state, that the state will have a corresponding reduction in our state aid like they've done before, or basically cycling federal aid off the top. If they don't do that, then we could probably pretty easily balance this. But every indication that we're getting is that I think everybody expects the state to stick their hand in their pockets.
And the 1.8 million gap that we're looking at right now, that is accounting for $0, an additional federal stimulus money. So anything we get in federal stimulus money will flow.
Correct. Correct.
unless all the corresponding states.
Every,
Right.
I should say, every dollar we get from the federal government, we get all of it.
Right. Right now, we built this budget based on the governor's state aid proposal.
Where's the health insurance? You're still working on that?
We are, I forgot that. Right now, I've got health insurance down to 7% increase over last year, and we're still working on it, trying to get there a little lower. I don't know, it's not gonna be 1.8 million, but it might be another 100,000. So every little bit at this point.
The 1.8 pound introduction off of your original budget?
Yes, yes. I've taken it down to the 7% in budget right now for 1.8 off. Any other questions?
Thank you. All right, so at this time, I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss the employment history of a particular individual. No action will be taken during executive session. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Courtesy